why are your brothers working at Disney and they're making satanic movies and all this, right?
Gosh.
Like, I mean, it was, these are fire and brimstone. This whole thing is my animation desk from Disney. And so this is a traditional animation desk. That's literally from the film. This is a production drawing. That's the frame that's from. Being Salt and Light and being somebody that is, no, I have to stand up and say something. As a younger newbie at Disney, your kids got woke?
No.
Disney.
Disney. Yeah, no.
Leaving Disney because of my faith, honestly. I left Disney in 2000 because... Welcome to my studio, by the way. That's where we are right now. And yeah, it really was a God moment for me. So I'd been working at Disney, but I'd been working at Disney for 12 years. It was all during the 90s and 2000s. So it was like their second golden age of Lion King, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Mulan, Tarzan, Brother Bear, all the way up to Lilo and Stitch. And my last film was Brother Bear.
Okay.
And so, you know, it was a great time to be there. And when I got there, it was, the animation world was kind of dead. It was just starting to pick up. I was an intern back in 1988 at Disney in California, where I grew up. And that was back on Little Mermaid. They were just making Little Mermaid. So we didn't know what was to come. I was entering something that was a big, scary thing where there was a lot of layoffs and stuff, much like how it is right now, unfortunately. So, you know, that was one big scary move, was getting into that first job at Disney in a really pivotal or rocky time. But became a pivotal time. And then leaving Disney because of my faith, honestly. I left Disney in 2000 because it was a string of films where people were questioning me, like my sister. My older sister would call me and say, this is back when some of the Baptists were boycotting Disney. So like around Aladdin time. And she would call me and we just made Pocahontas. And I worked on Pocahontas. And she said, you know, my church is boycotting Disney, and I everybody keeps coming up to me and saying, and I have a twin brother. We both worked at Disney. Why are your brothers working at Disney and they're making satanic movies and all this, right?
Gosh.
Like, I mean, it was, these are fire and brimstone preaching little tiny churches in Arkansas. And so, you know, I would always defend it. And because I did know why. And it wasn't falsehoods. These were truths, which was, you know, I knew the animator, Glenn Keane, who was animating and designing Pocahontas. He was a believer and is a believer. And so he would say, you know, I'm just being true to her faith. Like, that was a real person and they had to be true. And why would you, you know, you shouldn't change it. They did worship nature and things like that. And so she didn't speak to trees, but other than that, the rest was pretty much true. And so that was one film after another, but then we got to a little short film that I was able to be on a small group of to make called John Henry. And John Henry is an American fable, basically, that is, you know, takes place in a certain period of time with a certain people group, which was African Americans here in America that were slaves that had just been freed. And now they were competing against, if you know the story, competing against technology at the time, which was this modern machine that was building a railroad.
Kind of sounds familiar to today.
It does. Wow. Yes, there's an AI analogy. We should bring that movie back.
We'll talk to
just tweak it a little bit. We'll talk to Disney. But yeah, you're right. And so making that film, that little short, we were trying to be true to the culture, true to the times, true to that story. And so the director of that, Marquette, was a good friend of mine, and I was one of the supervising animators designing one of the main characters, Polly. And so I would be in these screenings of showing Disney the update of the story reel. Long story short, we had a final screening right before we were going to go into full production. And it was all basically some pencil tests, but mostly all storyboards. And we screened it for the president of the animation studio, of the whole department, and the vice president. And it was probably 10 people in this theater, and I was one of them. And I heard him say at the end, "This film makes me feel uncomfortable." And that's exactly how he put it. This is a few years back.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I actually heard the other side of what's kind of going on at Disney that a lot of people were actually trying to point out in their boycotts and all this. And obviously it went much further with the whole woke thing that we've gone through the last, say, 10 like 20,
Oh, yeah.
almost 20 years.
Yeah.
It's just progressed since then. But these were people that, were saying, no, it's the Christianity on this feels heavy-handed. It's making me feel uncomfortable. And yet I just made Mulan and
trying to be true to the story.
Right.
And can't you be true to Christianity?
In the Chinese culture, Mulan, we're showing them praying to their ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my beliefs.
Yeah.
So here we are, a few Christians that had kind of come together that were really leading this and put Christianity in this as far as, and it was very subtle, just God references in the songs. It was a musical. And there was like a cross on the top of the church. It was that kind of level that made them feel uncomfortable. And there were gospel singers that did the music. And so we had to take the cross off the church. We had to do, there were a few little nips and tucks that had to happen to make it feel not so Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it then, but 6 months later, I left Disney. That was the day that, looking back, was what started me on the path of not wanting to. So I went to Big Idea Productions.
Yeah, which is VeggieTales.
VeggieTales. And that started my journey there. And I moved from my dream job, and I was about to work on Lilo and Stitch and be a supervising animator. It was another dream job. And I quit Disney and said, no, I'm going to go follow what I know God wants me to do, which was to join Phil Vischer and Mike Naraki, my good friend, and joined VeggieTales. And so I did the Larry Boy 2D animated series there for about 4 or 5 episodes and helped on both of the feature films. But they went bankrupt within about 2.5 years. I always joke, it was like the day I came on, they started having financial problems because they were paying me so much. It was a step down for Disney, I will say. But I do think they were just hiring like crazy to make a feature film. And there was a lot of financial mistakes made. So, but I won't get into that. But these are all the stepping stones that led me on a path to coming to Franklin, because then after they went bankrupt, I went back to Disney in Florida and did Brother Bear for about 8 months. And afterwards, I could see the writing on the wall. Things were strange at Disney. It was weird to come back after I'd been able to pray openly. And we would, a Big Idea, we would pray and before a meeting. And that was so bizarre to me, not to pray, but to pray in my workplace. And then, and then come back to Disney where you can't really talk about God in the hallways or anything. It's very, you can kind of get talked to for doing that kind of stuff. And so, I didn't last there long.